Athletes, welcome back. Hate it or love it, we've got rowing today. And by the end of this, we certainly hope that all of you fall in love with rowing. We're gonna make our way over here. We got Nick already set up on the rower. We're gonna go over a couple settings before he gets started showing off his skills. So follow us. First, starting with the damper. Now, with our damper setting, there are many like rumors and false beliefs in what the damper actually does. The damper is not equated to difficulty in your rowing. What the damper does, to simplify it, is it's the amount of air that's allowed in the damper or into the actual flywheel itself. So when we're looking at this, if we put this down on a 1, this is gonna be no airflow. This thing can spin all it wants to, and it's gonna be a very quick pull in order to get that pace time down. If we take this and move it all the way up, now we've let all the air we possibly can into that flywheel, and this is gonna be one of those stronger, more anaerobic pulls, because we are gonna wear ourselves out. We're gonna get pumped really quick. Now, the damper setting for you is gonna be what you prefer. It's not the person next to you. It's not your favorite athlete. If you find that you row the best at a 5, put your damper at a 5. If you find you row the best at a 7 or an 8, put it at a 7 or an 8. I'll give you the general rule that athletes that I work with will typically start around a 7 or an 8. If they're on a biker, you go down to like a 3 or a 4, but on our row and our ski, we're looking at around the 7 and 8. But play around with different damper settings. See if you find that you're more efficient at a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or maybe at a 9. It's all preferential for the athlete and can even be dependent on the amount of rowing that you're doing for that day. When we have our damper setting where we like it, which Nick is gonna be around the 7 or an 8, we take a look at our foot cradle. So for our foot cradle, this is gonna be dependent on the size of our foot. So athletes or CrossFit athletes are notorious for setting these too small. So what we're looking at is that Nick has this set up just about perfect so that the ball of his foot is over the plastic piece of this foot cradle that doesn't move. We have that foot strap that moves back and forth to that cradle that we can adjust. So adjust it to the number of your preference. What we're looking for is that without grabbing the handle, Nick's gonna come forward, and we're looking for him to be able to come in and still maintain good heel contact in the front. If this was too small, you would start to see Nick's heels lift up in this position, and this is not a place that we wanna drive from when we're rowing. Go ahead and rack that for just a second. Lastly, when we're looking at our feet strap, we wanna have those strapped in nice and tight. If we're loose with the foot strap, you're gonna find that you're doing a lot more work with your hamstrings when pulling yourself back in. So that will help you. If you're one of those people that likes to go loose strap, try to tighten it up just a little bit, and you should find some benefit there. Now, this is something that most people know, but I got a couple people out there that I know that you have difficulty getting off your rower. It's super simple. This black tab that's right here, all we need to do is take it and push it straight down. Then Nick slides his foot forward, and then brings that heel out. That's how we get in and out of the rower. I know that it may seem like common sense to most people, but I got a couple people that are too shy to ask, and I always like to cover everything. So now we're gonna have Nick slide his foot back in, and we are gonna start talking about our rowing positioning. So he's gonna grab the handle for me. So the first thing we look at is gonna be our width grip on the handle. I don't care if you're a big athlete, if you're a small athlete, if you're an in-between athlete, I like to have all athletes go with a wider grip on that handle. And the reason is that especially if you're more of a broad athlete and you try to come in and those hands are moved in, so move those hands all the way in. When we come in, so come back for me and bring that in, you can see that Nick's tilted in and can't necessarily get a strong pull out of this position. If we move our hands back out to the position he's used to, he's gonna go, and now we can get a nice strong pull in the back. Go ahead and relax. Now, when we're going through this, we think about 3 zones for our body. I'm gonna name zone 1 is gonna be our knees. Zone 2 is gonna be our hips, and then zone 3 is gonna be our arms. When Nick comes back on the pull, we are looking at going sequentially through those zones. So we go 1, then 2, then 3. I'm gonna have him go really slow on this so we can see what that looks like. So go ahead and grab the handle. So first we extend zone 1, which is the knees, followed by the hips, and then followed by the arms. When he goes in, he goes backwards. It's gonna be 3, 2, and 1. Comes back, it's 1, 2, 3, then 3, 2, 1. The zone method helps us avoid the common fault of pulling with our arms while our knees are still in the way. So if Nick was to do this incorrectly, he comes back, pull first with your arms. He's bad at doing a bad job. Pull first with your arms, there you go. We have to go up and over those knees in order to get that rower handle back. And we want to be as efficient as possible here. If you look at rowing and you've maybe never thought about this before, this is really just a power clean or a muscle clean, because what we're doing is we're extending those legs into our hips and then finally with our arms. When we're going through this, I always talk about your breathing, and our breathing is going to be key to being a successful and strong rower. So when we think about this, we've talked about it before, just like in life, when things get hard, we have to breathe out. Anybody can come in on the rower, but when you got to pull that rower handle, sometimes it's the last thing you want to do. You got to breathe out. So when Nick grabs this handle again, he's going to begin rowing, and we're going to see him breathe out and then breathe in on the way into, and breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and breathe in. Now do that, but breathe normal for me. We want to make sure that as we're exercising, we're not trying to blow out birthday candles. So if we're going like that, we create no core engagement. We want to breathe out through pursed lips and try to keep it as normal to our regular breathing rate as possible. Go ahead and relax for me. Now, when we get into this, what we're going to look at is that when Nick is coming in, we talked about this briefly at the beginning, but we are not going in further than where our heels can maintain contact at the front of the rower. So if Nick gives me some bad reps here, I'm gonna have him go in. Some people think that if they condense themselves and make themselves as small as possible and those heels come up in the front, that they're getting more out of each pull. You are in a weaker pulling position when these heels come up because you're only driving off your toes. If you don't believe me, throw on your weightlifting shoes and try rowing, and you'll have a stronger pull with those weightlifting shoes because you have more of a heel to drive off of. The second thing that Nick did badly, which is a good thing for us right now, is he dropped his chest and he rolled over in that position. Trying to bring that handle in as far as you can, it gets you no extra. It just puts you in a really bad positioning to perform and opens you up for injury. So when Nick comes in, what we're looking for is that heels maintain most contact with the foot in the heel. If it comes up slightly, it's okay. And then we're also keeping this chest up and those knees are staying in. If you see somebody where they drive those knees out to try to get extra spacing, that is a no-go. We do not want that. We want to try to keep those knees. If you have to do it to accommodate, then that's okay. But for us, we are looking at trying to keep those knees in line with the feet. Last thing that when we go through this, if we look at Nick's finishing position in the back, I often have athletes that will bring this up into almost a guillotine position because they think that pulling there is going to help them. It will not. This puts us into a place for impingement in our shoulders and puts us in a weaker pulling position. So when Nick comes back, we are thinking about this handle coming to sternum or slightly lower than that so that this replicates the same position that we would have for a push-up, for a bench press, or just that functional upper body position that we have where we're going to be the most strong. How's that feeling, Nick?
Great.
That is going to cover our basics for the rower. There is one last piece that we will show you on the monitor that's going to talk to you about the power output so you can really test yourself to see if you have a nice even stroke rate. We're going to reposition and show that to you. All right, athletes, so we did talk about the monitor. And what we're going to be looking at is that on a Concept 2 monitor, if we go down to our second button, this is going to give us our force graph that we're going to have. So we're going to have Nick go ahead and start pulling for us. When we go through, our goal for this is to show a nice even pull where you're going to see you almost create a little hill. So the front of our hill and the back of our hill are going to start to look the same. I'm going to have Nick pull a little bit more and see if he can give us a bigger hill. And we can see right there that in the beginning, he's starting to bias towards the middle of his pull of like, that's where the most power is coming from. We want to try to even that out and give ourselves that nice curve up and then that nice curve down. And we're getting closer to that. So this is a self-coach that you can use on your own if you don't have your coach around. Now Nick's going to give us a couple bad pulls so that we can see kind of a bumpy hill to where we have now. This athlete is biasing all towards their arms. They're not using a lot of legs, and then they're kicking in those arms. Their arms will blow up on this. Let's do like no arm pull. So let's do legs and then don't throw those arms in there. And we can see that this is a much weaker pull and it starts to turn into that downward trend at the very end. So when we're going through this, if you're not sure of what kind of pull you have, we want to be as balanced as possible. Pull up this force graph so that you can see how your rowing stacks up and if you can make the perfect hill with your rowing pulls. Thank you so much for joining us today for rowing. We hope that after today's lesson, that you go and attack every single workout that you got on the rower like a champ. Thank you again for joining us. We hope you have a great day, and make sure, be good, be kind, and join us again for another great day of fitness.